Hey guys, welcome to another movie review. Today I'm going to be talking about the new Wes Anderson film, Isle of Dogs. This is his second stop motion animated film next to Fantastic Mr. Fox. A really good film if you haven't seen that, by the way. But in Isle of Dogs, you guys, it centers around a flu outbreak that happens in Japan. And like I said, this film is animated. And people freak out. They're trying to figure out what it is. But after some research is done, they find out that the dogs living in Japan have a connection to this flu outbreak. So what they do is, rather than doing a really horrible thing like killing the dogs or anything like that, or sending them away to a different country and potentially spreading this flu outbreak or whatever it is, they send them to an island called Trash Island. It's basically a giant junkyard that's on this big platform away from Japan somewhere, and the dogs live there. And the film really picks up in its storyline when the dogs who, obviously, there's dogs that like each other, hate each other, and so forth, but it centers around a group of dogs who are friends who find out about a young boy who landed on the island, and he's looking for his dog named Spots, who was sent away to Trash Island due to this flu outbreak in Japan. And so these dogs basically agree to help this young boy find his dog if he's still alive. And rather that means adventuring all across Trash Island or getting off of it, or basically searching all possibilities of where he might have gone on Trash Island. So basically, throughout the course of this film, these dogs who are friends have to figure out where this young boy, and they have to find Spots, the dog, for this young boy, since that was um, this boy's dog before he got sent to Trash Island. So overall, guys, I liked Isle of Dogs. I'm actually a pretty big Wes Anderson fan, and as a Wes Anderson fan, I gotta say I think he's made better films than this. That's not to say Isle of Dogs is bad. I think there's certainly some really good things about it. There's some things that are not so great about it, but let's go over some positives and negatives of what I overall thought of Isle of Dogs. So for my positives of this film, I thought this film had great writing. It really did kind of have whippy, quick one-liner things from the characters. Like for example, Jeff Goldblum voices one of the dogs in this film. Very much Jeff Goldblum isms for him. Definitely Bill Murray isms for his dog that he voiced in this movie. Even with Edward Norton, he's worked with Wes Anderson in the past. I even got kind of some of his previous characters with Wes Anderson within the voice of his dog that he voiced in this movie. I just overall was really impressed with the writing of this film. This is also a very fun and unique dog movie. One thing that they do that I'm going to bring up here in my another one of my positives is when a character's speaking in Japanese in Japan, they don't subtitle it, but there's scenes where if it's pretty detailed, there'll be like a TV network that's showing that live footage on like a news network somewhere, and that person is translating it in English for us, and that character was played by Frances McDormand. Um, but why I think that's unique is because when the dogs are talking, they're talking in English. So what we're seeing is kind of the dogs talking to each other. So my guess is the characters who speak in English or Japanese, they're just kind of seeing the dogs barking at each other when they're really just talking in English, the way I'm talking to you for this movie review. And I just thought that was really unique. I thought it was very much in the spirit of a dog movie to do that. When they see a treat or they see something they like or see something they want to smell and so forth, they do all these really unique things that a dog would want to do if they were on Trash Island and kind of trying to figure themselves out and figuring out what to do in a situation and so forth. So I thought as a dog movie, this film was fun and unique in that sense. I also like both the use of stop motion animation in this film and the use of 2D cell animation. They use 2D cell animation on scenes where like a character's looking at what the dogs are doing on like a surveillance camera, or another source of human characters finding out what these dogs are doing on Trash Island and so forth. I just thought the blend of the two animations was just really really unique and interesting, and it wasn't just pure stop motion. Like Wes Anderson did more than just that for this movie, and I thought that was very unique that he did that. And overall, I do feel this isn't a pretty original story. I really do feel like this kind of story really hasn't been made before, even though it has touches of Wes Anderson isms from his previous films, and we've gotten kind of slips and pieces of other things from other dog movies here and there that are happening in this movie. I feel like this film takes its own original route, takes its own unique personal trademark, while also adding the Wes Anderson trademark and doing something unique with that in several different ways. I also like the use of, and I was talking about this one earlier, but I'm going to go into more detail on it now for this point. I like the use of English and Japanese and how the dogs fit into all of it. But there's a character that's a foreign exchange student, for example, who's played by Greta Gerwig. She speaks in English since she's from Ohio, I think it was in this movie. And obviously the characters speak in Japanese. They don't subtitle it, but like I said, they translate it in unique ways and translate it for like news networks and so forth, so you know what they're talking about. And obviously, when the dogs are talking, they're talking in English so that we can understand them. But like I said, the outside world probably just views them as them barking to each other. So I thought just the use of language overall was very unique in this movie. I also like the art direction of this film. Even when they're on Trash Island, it doesn't really, um, believe it or not, it's a junkyard slash trash island that it looks appealing. It looks like something that you kind of just want to look around at and see what it's all about. Like there's even scenes where they're at like their dog hideout and it's like a glass bottle cave and it almost looks like big light fruity pebbles kind of. But it's the overall art direction that Wes Anderson took with this film is just very unique and interesting. I just approved of it. I thought it was very interesting. I also like the use of Japanese culture art. They'll have like old pictures of like old Japanese tidal waves or old Japanese art, and they show like how the dogs got incorporated. It doesn't look like they're placed in there. It does feel like the dogs are a part of that art that we're all familiar with from Japanese culture. So I thought the use of that was very interesting and unique as well. But for my negatives of Isle of Dogs, I feel like it's not Wes Anderson's best film, but like I said, it's still a good one. I thought his left and right panning motions when he's trying to show us Trash Island or show a landscape of a scene, I thought he went a little too fast. And the reason I say that is because I do like the art direction so much in this film that when he goes so fast on those panning motions, I'm not going to be able to absorb the beautiful scenery and art that he's done. It just feels like it's moving too fast, and I'm not really getting a chance to absorb it as a viewer to really appreciate all the hard work that everybody on this production crew made for him and what he did too to make this film come to life. Another negative I have with this film has an excessive use of flashbacks. It gets to the point where the flashbacks happen so often you kind of have a hard time keeping track of what's going on in the present story of the timeline. A couple of flashbacks would have been okay, but I feel like it gets to the point where they use so many flashbacks to the point where it's just so hard to keep track of the story after a while because they have to go back and forth so often with what's going on with some of these characters in the movie. There's also some pretty harsh and dark imagery in this film. I feel like this film could have made its point in a more light-hearted way. There's just certain scenes that really make its point in the darkest possible way, like having a dog have his ear bitten off, or the dogs gave us the flu, so we got to send them to the trash island and so forth, and things like that. I just thought there was some points that were just really harsh. Like there's cannibalistic dogs in this movie, just things that they really did not need to do. Just some imagery I thought that could have been handled better in this movie. I also thought the third act of this film was kind of sloppy. It just had so many ideas that they got to wrap up and introduce and conclude and continue. It's just like, just pick a couple of them that work the best for this movie and just go with that. I really feel like the third act was just kind of a little all over the place. I also feel like some of the dogs just don't feel necessary for the story. There's just some dogs that are there for the adventure, but they don't really add anything. For example, I thought Edward Norton's character was interesting, the dog that he voiced, but by the time you see the whole movie, you find out his dog really didn't do anything for the story or the adventure. His dog really didn't do anything to help them succeed in this adventure in any way. And I would even say the same for Jeff Goldblum. It was fun to see his voice used for this dog character, but I feel like he was just kind of there for a couple comedic moments and that was it. He didn't really add anything to the story or resolved anything for the story in any way. So certain characters like that I just thought really weren't necessary. I would even go so far as to say the Scarlett Johansson dog really didn't do anything in this film. She has a voice role in this film too. She's just kind of there to talk to the Bryan Cranston dog for a couple of scenes and that's about it. But overall, I'm going to give Isle of Dogs an 8.5 out of 10. I really do like this film. I think there's a lot of good things about it. Certainly a Wes Anderson film, certainly things that Wes Anderson fans like myself will appreciate about it. But certain negatives like the left and right panning motions feeling too fast, the excessive use of flashbacks, some harsh dark imagery I thought that they could have handled better, a sloppy third act, and just some dog characters that really don't feel necessary or add anything to the story at all. But 8.5 out of 10 for me. I do enjoy this film. If you like Wes Anderson's films and want to see what he has done now for this new one, definitely give it a view. 8.5 out of 10 for me.